the progression is at that point. And I want to just take the opportunity to go, and we anticipate French 4 to be on the list as well. Students are definitely thriving in that course, and in anticipation of them continuing their program, adding the fourth level in this edition. On page 27, there was a change simply in the structure of requirements for the Honors Algebra 1 class, and that is simply looking at, on the front end, students must have an average, adding the statement to the note for considering this course, have an average performance score of a 4.5 on their previous 2 math OST scores, which simply says we've been recognizing that students who race through the math curriculum, especially at the foundational algebra level, struggle in their 3rd year and 4th years. And so to slow the pace down, if we struggled going into Algebra 1, we may have anticipated that we could bite off more than we could chew. Then we're going to back off a little and go, have some demonstrated success, an average of a 4 or 5 between the previous 2 years, and we probably are in your camp of going, hey, this will work for you. And they worked backwards on that, looking at students who were struggling in class, going, how did they fare on their 7th grade and their 8th grade end of course, or not end of course, it's the OST scores. And the ones that struggle the most at the pace at which that course operates are the ones who had the lower 3s or just above the proficient mark. And so we want to make sure that we go at a pace that they understand algebra so that it foundationally builds the successive classes afterwards. And so does it mean that everyone has to be that way? It just means on the front end, that's going to be a threshold that we're going to look at on the core recommendation, okay? Science, they also are making adjustment within their pathways to add a course, Honors Physical Science. Now, that new Honors Physical Science, I understand that used to be in existence many years ago, okay? The idea with the science department was that this would also be for 8th graders. So much like the 8th grader reaches up and has an algebra class, the 8th grader reaches up and has a world language class, they also could reach up and have this Honors Physical Science class. And so it'll come married with what we'll do with sequencing at the middle school to how does a student step into this as an 8th grader, or as an 8th grader rising into 9th grade, I can take this Honors Physical Science, because they also believe that the pathway that currently exists takes them from 8th grade science to Honors Biology, bypassing physical science at a foundational level, just the introductory side. And so when they get to chemistry and they get to physics, which are the advanced sciences, physical sciences, they have missed the introductory stuff, and so they spend a lot of time reviewing. So our hope and aim is that students who are have an aptitude for the sciences may be able to take this as an earlier iteration in 8th grade and have it be a dual class for middle school and high school. And they would still take the 8th grade science test, yes. Yep. The history section, and you feel free to stop me and ask me any questions along the way if you'd like. The history section, they have an addition of a history through pop culture class. On the horizon, the entering class, freshman class, and next year's rising juniors will not be allowed to have financial literacy be a credit within the history section. Okay, so they need 3 credits of history to graduate. Currently, our students take 1 world history, 1 for American history, and then a semester of government and a semester of financial lit, and they can choose one of the other electives along the way. But with the displacement of financial literacy going into its own category, the department was challenged with, well, what class will students take? We currently offer sociology, international current events, AP psychology, and I'm drawing a blank now on the 4th one. Law, yep. And so the history through pop culture, another one that was vetted within the class, hey, what would be of interest? Students pretty much gravitated towards this, and so the net neutral again on this one is that psychology alone is going to be removed. So if a student wants to pursue psychology, it'll be on the AP level. Our students have been very successful on the AP psych exam the last couple of years, and so to run with that they're getting preparation and it counts as a college credit is something that we would keep for them. But the opportunity for another semester course that gives them their 3 credits through this history of pop culture. They're going to analyze history with that lens. And they give a couple examples of the content that they'll be using within that. They also have added a sports literature class to that as well. So, oops, that was, I turned the page wrong. Yeah, I turned the page wrong, my bad. That was in English. They have, this next one is an evolution that through our students taking the PSAT, one of the reports that we get is their AP potential. And the AP potential says, what's the likeliness that a student would take the AP level class and score a 3, 4, or 5? We dug into the AP results and we set that threshold at what's the likeliness that there's a 70% chance a student would get a 3, 4, or 5 in a specific class. What would that be? It turns out that AP World History is the one history department AP test that our students have the highest probability of getting a 3, 4, or 5. And as a district, we don't offer AP World. And so in collaboration with the history department, what they want to do is evolve out the honors world history and offer AP World History in its place. Again, a net neutral trade. We'd still offer world history for those who don't want to dabble at the AP level, but again, we believe that our teachers can prepare students to be successful on this, and it's not just a hunch. Their PSAT scores show that they've got an aptitude for it. And so that's a new add for that department as well.
What grade are they taking world history now?
So currently it's a freshman class, and the recommendation on the front end is going to be it's going to be still a freshman class for AP World. What students would do right now is their sequence would be Honors World, then AP Euro, and then AP US, typically followed by AP Government by the end. What we're going to try and do is allow students to go AP World, AP Euro, AP US, and then that. So by the end, they might have 4 in the history realm of AP level classes. Now, if a student doesn't take AP World, but wants to circle back to either Euro or World, they can as a junior, senior, as an elective going. I'm interested in that. I'd like to take it now.
So freshmen this fall can take AP?
That is what I'm proposing, yes. That come next year. It's not a course that we currently offer, but we're going to look to have it in place for our rising 8th graders. Yes.
I don't want you texting Addie right now that that's going to happen, so.
Are there other AP courses for freshmen?
No, this will be the first.
This will be the first, yeah. This is,
And it's a strategic play because, again, we as we dove into the data, all the metrics say our kids can do this. We went back and forth on having it kind of be an AP for all, going, hey, let's try this. And you know, sometimes the name itself puts people off, and so I don't want to scare people. You make the choice. If all the students choose to take it, that's great. So.
and we actually needed a little bit more flexibility in the schedule with the number of students that we have going to the Career Center, about 50% of our class.
Yeah.
That creates some scheduling lock-ins for us because juniors are there in the morning and seniors are there in the afternoon. So by a student being able to take a class as a 9th grader now, that creates some openings in schedules for them because otherwise, with the transportation back and forth, even as close as we are, their schedules are very, very tight when they get back. There's very limited what they can, you know, we make sure that they can get all their graduation requirements, but there's not a lot of latitude on other things. This actually opens up some space for us in that scheduling process if a student were to take it as a 9th grader, and gives them a little bit of breathing room then as a junior and senior as far as maybe some other electives and pathways they might want to take on. Because the way that the Career Center is you took your Career Center class and you came back and you got your math, social studies, English, and there wasn't a whole lot of room for anything else. There wasn't room for an art class or an additional phys ed class, those types of things in the past.
One last class that is in the edits is the addition of an introduction to computer science. So Our middle school, we now tout, we have 3 Project Lead the Way courses. All the levels of our middle school students, 6th, 7th, and 8th, have a computer class that's designed on design and implementation problem solving. When we get to the high school side, we implement Project Lead the Way as well for cybersecurity and computer science essentials. The third one, and computer science principles. However, we don't have that introductory intro to computer science. And so talking with our technology department, they said, let's put together a package that allows kids to start this before they begin one of the heavier straight into computer science principles or straight into cybersecurity. And so it is a course that's offered in most other high schools, and so it seemed sequentially relevant, especially as we pretty much project down the road that there's going to be some type of technology component in terms of student graduation requirements down the road. And so if we can get our students to offer to grades 9, 10, 11, or 12 to take one of these classes as an elective coming up, they've just helped themselves get towards that graduation component. So we offer in all, there's about 10 new courses. Some of them are refinements of ones that existed. Some are totally new that replace older classes or classes that may not have been high on the straw poll with students' requests. But I think in either case, all of the courses that we're asking you to kind of approve later on today are ones that our teachers have strategically said, these are relevant courses and they will improve our child's or our students' ability down the road. So,
I wanted to circle back to the English
yeah.
category. As a former journalist, I was disappointed to see that you are removing speech, journalism 1 and 2, creative writing, and creative productions. I mean, I do see what you're adding in its place, but I was just looking for a little bit more rationale behind that.
Yeah, so I also felt the same way when I said, you know, the 2 creative courses had high requests, and I thought they were doing very well with students' projects that they were actually designing and creating as a product of the class. And what they assured me is that in each of these aspects of those classes will be embedded in each of these new electives that they're doing. So it's meaning they're going to be asked to create products and write in ways that illustrate, not say straight pure journalism, but the creative production. They may have an alternative way in which they're asked to present. So there's going to be more than just the English 11 standards. It's going to rope in some of the additional skills that I think that we're cutting out with those. Not all of them. However, I know that their intentions were to embody most of those skills that they learned in those also into each of these 4 electives.
I think even among all of those, for me, I can't say, I think a speech class is just so important. And my very first college class was a speech class, at which I found out that I could be on a speech team. And I was on a speech team in college and, you know, competed across the state and across the country in different forms of speech. And I just felt that that was something that laid the groundwork for just a very important skill to have that crosses over all kinds of different, you know, jobs and categories.
No,
the ability to speak before groups.
And I agree with you completely. And so the ability to get up and speak in front of large groups or to be prepared to communicate whatever the message is to somebody is going to be embedded in many classes at this
I
point.
think
Not a dedicated speech class.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it really with Mr. Kosevich, with Model UN and our
Law.
our law class.
Right, and that's wonderful.
The
They're doing great.
those numbers are off the charts.
Yeah.
We've never had so many kids involved, and that's even beyond curricular. That's kids spending a whole lot of time after school for preparation for
Right.
the Model UN and for the law competition. So I think we pick up some of that in those areas.
I want to add one other piece, and that is, just to kind of be candid, the number of students who were requesting the traditional speech, the traditional journalism, the traditional creative writings was fading.
Yeah.
And we had to do something to reinvigorate the department and inspire kids to want to go into those classes.
Right, right.
And so it was the balance and what I charged them with. Find me ways that we can get kids to come in without losing what we had been offering.
And I could see some of those things circling back around and maybe a more digital form, the format that we grew up with has
Right.
morphed itself right now and, for lack of a better term, kind of antiquated. And the students today are so digitally wired that I think in some way, shape, or form, I think we will see some sort of resurgence with this coming from a different direction, more digital oriented. And it's not really quite what the Career Center is doing with some of their digital communications over there, because that's a whole separate entity. But I still think that we're going to see some things emerge in the next 3 to 4 years that are way different in format. But I think on the end that we think about public speaking and communications are going to fall into line with that. So.
I mean, I can see where there would be greater interest in these courses that are proposed, that, would gain people's attention. I just, worry about a criticism these days we find is that young people just don't have social skills because they're immersed in their phone and their computer and games and video games and don't know how to interact. And I just feel that's, a lost talent, and a speech class could go a long way to do that. But, I understand what you're saying, and what you're saying also is the fact that you're going to try to incorporate those skills into these new classes. So I hope so.
I'm going to hold them to it.
Okay.
Well, I see your sports lit write-up, it says presentational skills will be essentially, I don't know if it says required or strongly emphasized.
And it does say it under nonfiction too, it says speeches, as part of the
Yeah,
content.
so I think they recognize the fact, I think they share your passion for writing, your passion for the ability to present, to be articulate, and I don't think that's been lost in this. They want kids to stay at Cuyahoga Heights and take our classes, not choose the College Credit Plus avenue or
Yeah.
online avenue, which is what we're up against. It is, in essence, I've said this since 2015, we're in competition for our kids, and as much as kids, will gravitate towards a great teacher, they don't want to be bored to death either.
Yeah.
So it's a real tough balancing act.
I can appreciate what you're trying to do, to create interest so that they'll want to take these classes and hopefully do well in them. I can appreciate that.
We also know that our rigor, I'm a firm believer that our rigor is greater than some of the options that they have beyond our walls sometimes. And, that's an ongoing discussion since the days that College Credit Plus was instituted. There were students that really wanted College Credit Plus, and there were students that really did not want to take English 4 at Cuyahoga Heights, and that English at Tri-C was way easier. I stood behind a kid in the office as he was expounding to his classmates about why would you stay here when you could go down to Tri-C and take it, and he had no idea I was standing behind him. And when he found out I was, he was mortified. But but we embrace that. We embrace the rigor part of it, and that we want to do our best on that end of it.
I will say it reminds me of the elementary literacy programs that we've approved, but where they go deep on a topic, and that's how they kind of get you
That-
into the
that
reading,
was
and
the-
what you
yep.
said on the sci-fi, so it's kind of nice to see if that continuing a little bit.
So, Mr. DeTrey, I have a question on the introduction to computer science.
Yes.
Curriculum. What I don't understand, and it's just because I'm not that familiar with our curriculum, is when do we begin instructing students on the things that I'm a little more versed in, or do we instruct them on, for example, the Microsoft suites, the Offices, the Excels, the PowerPoints, the kind of thing.
That's a
See,
great,
I'm-
no.
I'm just saying, I'm
Because
dating
that was,
myself
that
now.
was a standalone at one time, and it's not, and it really.
So is it now
it-
kind of, is it
it's-
Google, or is it, am I just totally?
Well, we found out it was a standalone as a ninth grade class, and it was too late, because those kids were already
That-
immersed in.
that was kind of what I was thinking, is
in,
it-
You know, Mr. Miller in the elementary building, and so there was introductions there. We were still running some computer application classes, and we said, well, what in the world are we doing? Because we're asking ninth and 10th graders to do some things that our fourth, fifth, and sixth graders were already competent at, so that we had to make a shift.
Yeah, I would liken it to like maybe a former keyboarding class that we may have taken as well. Kids come in with certain skills now that we go, they already have this.
Okay.
And so we jump into a little bit heavier of a concept by the high school time. And so because the same teachers teach the 6th, 7th, and 8th and the upper level AP science classes, they said this is the perfect class for right in the middle. And they had another one that they're getting ready for that I would look for us to kind of add in the next year if we can, that kind of gives them a full year worth of dabbling before they jumped into a cybersecurity or an outright computer programming.
So just to kind of follow up on this then, I take it then that our students are being introduced to, informally, but also formally,
Yeah.
being educated on these, I'll just say, the Microsoft suites and things that I'm
Yeah.
maybe a little familiar with.
In their, I'll say within their cores, they're asked routinely to utilize those
Okay.
those programs to share their information and to report on whether it's an English report or it's a presentation for science or a data Excel sheets page. Their Chromebooks and their Google Suite pretty much are the way in which they've grown up in schools.
Great.
And I think more of our kids really, I've been, as I've watched the senior presentations through the years, because we are a Google school, have really leaned more towards the Google end of it versus the Microsoft end of it.
Sure.
That's just fits into what we're doing, and the shocker for me was probably about 4 years ago when I had a parent say, hey, my daughter is writing papers on her cell phone. I mean, can you get her a Chromebook? So I brought her in, and I was gonna send her a Chromebook, and she goes, Mr. Evans, it's easier for me to do it on my cell phone. I'm thinking, so that was hard for me to wrap my brain around, but to see her, I mean, she was literally producing papers for her English classes on her cell phone. That was easier for her than giving her a Chromebook and having her do it that way. She was accustomed to that, and so that was the thing where, I'm about 4 or 5 generations removed, and I had a real difficult time wrapping my brain that would be, but that really, that was no big deal. And now that student's in college and still working off of a cell phone a lot of the time because they have the capacity to do the things that they need to have done with them, and they're always with them. So it's
Thank you.
I'm just old.
Well, same here. Thank you. I share your sentiments. That's kind of what the root of my question was.
It's too tiny.
I won't even tell you about the classes that I took at a very high level, a long time ago. Thank you.
I think the offerings that are being proposed here with this allow a student to go into each of the 4 cores just as much as they want to go in depth within an art class or within a music class. So I think they're good complements to what we already have, and it's, to me, a logical progression. Obviously, I got to sit with them and we debated why this over that, but I hope you guys are comfortable with what I've put forward here. So.
On a practical viewpoint, are there any staffing implications other than people having to learn how to do some new classes?
No, that's true. It was all under the guise I go net neutral, which is we're not adding staff, and I hope to maintain the staff that we have. And it's surely, I always call it a straw poll. When kids put their requests in every year, they're telling us what they want. So if we give them a list of many classes they want, they'll eventually get to all of our classes by the time they've finished their 4 years.
But we do have all the skill sets on staff.
Yes, we do.
Good.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, technology is one where we're lean on, but it doesn't mean that it can't be solved in a different way.
So are we having to create the curriculum for these classes, or there's somewhere else where we can tap into them?
No, our teachers are going to create this. They came up with these from their thoughts and their polling of students and talking to them in their discussions. So yeah, the newer classes, now the honors physical science, that
Yeah.
exists. But
I'm talking about the newer ones.
But the newer ones, yeah,
Wow, that's impressive.
that was our staff. So,
Well, thank you for the hard work that you and the rest of the team put into this. It's an enormous task, and I certainly appreciate what you're doing and the way that you and the staff are working together collaboratively to get our students, to allow them to succeed in life.
I'm proud of the time and the commitment that our staff put into the thought. I mean, even within math, where there was just this one minor sentence change, we still talked about all the courses and the offerings and said, it's still appropriate for what our students need leaving us.
That's good.
And there just were no changes necessary, so.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to agenda item number 5, and there's an item for the board to consider, and that is item 5A. It's a resolution. I'm going to read the first part, and then Mr. Muccio, as needs to, will supplement it. So the motion reads, a resolution determining to proceed with the submission of the question of levying an additional current operating expense and permanent improvement tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation pursuant to section 5705.217 of the revised code.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Yes, this is a resolution determining to proceed with the submission of the question of levying an additional current operating expense and permanent improvement tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation pursuant to section 5705.217 of the revised code. Whereas on November 20th, 2023, the Board of Education of the Cuyahoga Heights Local School District adopted a resolution determining to submit to all the electors of the school district the question of levying a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation on the entire territory of the school district, a copy of which resolution was certified to the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Officer Auditor and is attached hereto as Exhibit A. And whereas the annual rate of the levy as set forth in the resolution attached hereto as Exhibit A is to be apportioned as follows. A, 7 mils shall be apportioned for current operating expenses, and B, 1 mil shall be apportioned for general permanent improvements. And whereas the auditor has certified to the board that the total estimated property tax revenue that will be produced by the stated millage, assuming the tax valuation of the school district remains constant throughout the life of the levy, is calculated to be $3,504,000 per year, with $3,066,000 derived from 7 mils apportioned for current operating expenses and $438,000 derived from 1 mil apportioned for general permanent improvements. Copies of the auditor's certifications are attached hereto and incorporated herein as attachment B. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Cuyahoga Heights Local School District with not less than 2/3 of its members concurring. Section 1, pursuant to Revised Code 5705.217, this Board of Education declares that the amount of taxes that can be raised within the 10 mil limitation will be insufficient to provide an adequate amount for the present and future requirements of the school district, and has determined to proceed with the submission to the entire territory of the school district at an election to be held on March 19th, 2024, of the question of levying an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for a continuing period of time. The additional tax shall commence with a levy on the tax list and duplicate for tax year 2024 to be first collected in calendar year 2025, and is estimated by the auditor to raise the total amount of $3,504,000 each year at the total rate of 8 mils, of which 7 mils is allocated to current operating expenses and 1 mil is allocated to general permanent improvements. The purpose of the additional tax is to provide funds for current operating expenses and for general permanent improvements as authorized by Revised Code 5705.217 at the annual tax rate as is necessary to raise that amount in accordance with the auditor's estimations attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit B, which provide that the total tax rate of 8 mils per $1 of taxable value is estimated to raise $280 for each 100,000 of the auditor's appraised value. Section 2, the territory of this school district is only located in Cuyahoga County, and the treasurer is directed to certify to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections copies of this resolution and of the resolution of necessity previously adopted by the Board of Education on November 20th, 2023, along with the certificates of the auditor referred to herein and attached hereto. The Board of Education requests that the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections prepare the ballots and make other arrangements necessary for the submission of this question to all the electors of the school district in accordance with Ohio law pursuant to Revised Code 5705.217A. The form of the ballot to be used at the election shall be in accordance with Revised Code 5705.25. Section 3, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this Board of Education concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this Board of Education, and that all deliberations of this Board of Education and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 125.22 of the Ohio Revised Code, 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code, and the rules of this Board of Education adopted in accordance therewithin. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Muccio. So with that background, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 5A of this evening's agenda as described. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Souchaki seconds. Is there any additional discussion or questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Am I thinking this differently? In the fall, was it 8.1 mil?
No.
No.
I thought the capital improvement was 1.1 mil.
No.
Okay.
It's my understanding that this is, again, an overall 8 mil proposal, levy proposal, and that it's entirely consistent with what we, as a board and as a community, considered in the November election.
Correct.
If I'm misstated, let me know. So we have a second. Are there any additional questions, comments, issues? Okay. If not, let's move to a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki.
Aye.
Mrs. Decker.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Ms. Kraus.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. I'm moving on now to agenda item number 6. Mr. Muccio, Treasurer's Business.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. We have items, I ask for items 6A, 7A through 7D for approval tonight.
Thank you. So may I have a motion to approve the Treasurer's consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Ms. Decker moves.
Second.
Mr. Souchaki seconds. Mr. Muccio.
Yes, 6A, we have our minutes from the past 2 meetings that we had take place. 7A would be new vendors. We just have one, and that is for Vitamec, and that's going to be for the purchase of a piece of equipment that we have with our Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Grant. I'll talk more about that in the next item. 7B, purchase orders over 5,000. We just have 4 tonight. The first 2 deal with Mr. Young, and the first one's Project Lead the Way, and that's for a robot design kit, and that's with our Career Tech Education Grant through the CVCC, and that's $5,150. Number 2 is Clutch Solutions. That's 28 Project Lead the Way computers, and that total is $42,812, split between $24,000 coming from that CVCC grant, and then $18,812 coming from our Permanent Improvement Technology Fund. Number 3 is United Rentals. That's for a scissor lift, and 75% of that, which is $8,500, is covered by that Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Grant, which is $6,375. So the school's paying only $2,125 for a scissor lift. And item number 4 is that bus wash machine from the new vendor. That totals $35,000, and 75% of that's covered through the Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Grant, which is $26,250, which means $8,750 is covered by Permanent Improvement Fund. And if we take a look at item T3D, it shows a picture of what that piece of equipment is for the bus washing that we have. So no longer will we have anybody standing on a ladder with a hose, possibly slipping, but it's now a battery-powered machine that's going to run along the vehicles that we have. And again, that was something where we had an individual from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation come out, sat with him in the treasurer's office for a couple hours. We wrote the entire grant. I said, you're not leaving until we have it, A+. A+, we submitted to the Bureau, they approved it, and we're able to buy the safety equipment that we have. Let's see what else.
I just want to say thank you to the people who put the effort in to get these grants, and that showing the really great things that we're able to buy with them. And it looks like from these grants, we're only paying a portion of what these items really cost. So we do appreciate those grants. We know they're not easy to get, and people work hard to write up the proposals for them, and I don't want that to go unnoticed. I think we really do appreciate that.
Thank you, and we work as a team, Mr. Evans, Mr. Dietrich, Mr. Young, Mr. Moore. There are a lot of grants that come through, so we're constantly, out searching and applying. Item 7C, donations. We want to thank the two donations that we have. First one is for Donald and Melissa Galick. That's for $300 for the class of 2024. And Charles and Linda Wilson, also $300, also for the class of 2024. And 7D would just be two then and now items, one for Securitas Technology Corp., and that's for our monitoring of our alarm system for the year, and Logicalis for our yearly phone system that we have. I ask for those items for approval tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Muccio. That background information is very helpful, and I share Ms. Etter's appreciation for the work that this team does to secure the grants and ultimately help the money go further. So thank you. Unless there's any additional questions or comments for Mr. Muccio, we can move to a roll call vote.
Mrs. Decker,
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Ms. Rouse,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye, the motion passes 5-0. Mr. Muccio, item number 9, discussion items.
And just have a couple tonight. First one, our alternative tax budget that we have to do every year, which is every January, is going to be due soon. So I'll have that prepared and ready for the board to vote on during our January 10th organizational meeting. And it's due back to Cuyahoga County ultimately by the 19th, but we have to board approve it by the 15th of January. And that mirrors our 5-year forecast, so it doesn't deviate from that. That's our roadmap. We just conform the alternative tax budget to that 5-year forecast when we have it in place. Number 9B is going to be our gap. So fiscal '23, we contract with the Auditor of State's office, that's their local government service division, to help us complete the gap. And gap is just generally accepted accounting principles, which essentially creates our financial statements. So the Auditor of State's office creates our financial statements, and we file that with the Auditor of State's office within 150 days after the close of our fiscal year. So our fiscal year ends 6/30, so 150 days is right around Thanksgiving. So we file that on time, and it's with the Auditor of State's office. So we have a copy of our financial statements attached here as well. Now the auditors on the other side, our normal auditors, are going to audit those financial statements for accuracy as well as other procedures that we have in place. So that's how it works. 9C. So I figured let's talk about the official results from our November 7th, 2023 election. And we have the page from the Board of Elections. And as we can see, for the levy was 1,006 votes. Against the levy was 1,041 votes. So that means a total of 2,047 votes, and it did not pass, a difference of 35 votes. It's very small that we have in place. And 9D would be Suburban Health Consortium. So if everybody's able to open that attachment, SHC, the financial report for November 2023. And again, our fiscal agent is the treasurer from Orange Schools. He's the one who prepares this. We are at a place now with the 20 school district member consortium where we're out of compliance. What I mean by that is if we look at the bottom right-hand corner, it's highlighted in orange. It says the best estimate reserve for unpaid claims and terminal administration expenses updated as of November 23rd per Ohio Revised Code, section 9.833. That's 12.1 million that we can see there. We can see our ending balance right above that is 11.9, which means there's a deficit of 225,000. So right now the consortium has passed that red line, which is that figure right there. So it talks to the viability, a going concern. But everybody, within the consortium right now is aware that we're essentially out of compliance. So I'm sure it's going to be mentioned in the audit report of Suburban Health Consortium as we take place and go ahead.
So, Mr. Muccio, just as, with that background, could you just give a real quick synopsis of where our district stands? I think that we voted to leave the consortium? or-
No.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, we with the majority of the other school districts in Suburban Health Consortium voted to switch from Medical Mutual to Anthem. So that switch is going to take place pretty soon, early in the next calendar year. And the consortium's hopeful that this is going to, stop the drain on the consortium funds right now from Medical Mutual. So the thought is Anthem is going to be less expensive than Medical Mutual. There's going to be not necessarily savings, but it's not going to increase at such a dramatic rate. So Anthem, hopefully stays where it is cost-wise, as opposed to where Medical Mutual, the cost would just be larger.
So the consultant told us that the change in Anthem, with the amount that we previously raised, the percentage that we previously raised, that discussion in the fall, that is applied to everybody in the consortium. Anthem has, the consultant said that percentage raise will get us through with Anthem. It will not get us through with Medical Mutual, as Matt just showed you in that spreadsheet, so.
Can they operate in a deficit?
It's
No.
not a deficit, that's a deficit based on the number that the ORC tells us we should have in reserve. ORC by statute, that's what the number is, tells you that this is the percentage you should have in reserve. So we've
Okay.
dropped below that, what ORC says we should, so we're not technically in compliance with ORC right now. We still have funds, I don't know where we're at in the collection process of payments and that type of thing right now, but that's ORC's number, that what they require is a reserve balance for consortiums.
And that number is derived from, the culmination of unpaid claims that could be out there for the consortium. So if everybody has all their claims come due, that could be 12.1, where our cash for the consortium is 11.9, which means the consortium cannot pay for all the claims that have happened. So that's the fear when you get below, as Mr. Evans is talking about, that line that we have per ORC. That's
So what's
derived
the
from.
consequence for everyone?
Well, it's not good. It's like anything else, within the audit world, if you're out of compliance, you get written up and, it goes to the viability and there's more of a, spotlight on it. So the auditor's office is going to have a spotlight on the consortium for, hitting that mark. The hope is that we're going to go higher than that. So we're going to, like a roller coaster, come back up and end the year or in the next couple of months, higher than that. And then going forward, the consortium's, going to make sure that they don't go below that. That's the line that everybody's, been watching. We knew we were coming close to it, and that's why there was an increased, emergency to have these votes take place to switch from Medical Mutual to Anthem, because they knew that we're coming close, if not going below, which has happened.
And again, we voted on, what was the 15%, was the increase?
Yeah, I'm drawing a
The
blank.
increase that we voted on is being fully implemented. So the auditor looks at that, says we just didn't do that and not pay attention to it. We put a plan in place with an increase, so we've got things in place to help us become compliant. They're still not happy, obviously, but it isn't like we've sat and ignored the fact that this was gonna take, we saw this coming and did nothing. That's not the.
Right.
And that's all I have for tonight. Unless there are any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Muccio, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 10, superintendent's business. Mr. Evans?
I ask that items 10A through D be approved and 11A as part of the consent agenda.
Thank you. So may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Mr. Suchaki moves.
Second.
Ms. Prowse seconds. Mr. Evans?
The first is MOU for a 7th class. We did that a couple years ago. That MOU is identical to one we used previously, and that will help a student with a credit recovery. that's outside the bounds of our collective bargaining agreement, but that's gonna help us get a student that was here and then left and came back credit deficient, so the teacher's willing to give up a class to do that, a free period to do that with that student. The program of studies that Mr. Dutray presented, co-curricular activities fee schedule was just the addition of we had to add the swim fee lessons to that. And the student fee list, the only change on that is the replacement value for technology and products that are broken. We have to have that in there so we can charge whatever the replacement value is for those items. The supplemental for chat is just simply a reserve, an additional announcer for basketball games should we need one. So we've got a couple for both boys and girls. So that's what I have before the board this evening. If there's any questions.
Questions, comments for Mr. Evans? Hearing none, let's move to roll call vote, then, please.
Mr. Soucek?
Aye.
Ms. Prowse?
Aye.
Mrs. Decker?
Aye.
Mrs. Zetter?
Aye.
Mr. Downs?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Mr. Evans?
A couple things. We'll have Model UN at the January board meeting. Recognize those students. If you saw any of the pictures that I posted, they brought home 5 or 6 trophies, multiple individual student awards. They just kicked some tail down at Model UN. Mr. Kosovich, they were hitting on all 8 cylinders, and just really, those kids are so excited about what they did and what they've done, and so we'll plan for a January presentation by Model UN, so they can tell you a little bit about what it is, because it's really fascinating, and we haven't had them talk to us in a number of years, and certainly Mr. Kosovich has done in his 3rd year, just really a phenomenal job with that. At some point in time, I need to have a discussion with the board. April 8th is the day we get back, the Monday we back from spring break. It is also the day of the eclipse.
My daughter's
Yeah.
very worried you're
It
gonna
is,
miss it.
it is also the day of the Indians' home opener.
Oh, jeez.
It is also the day that many schools, this is difficult for me. A solar eclipse, this is a teachable moment for us as educators. I want to embrace this as an educational activity, and all my brethren are closing schools for that day. Lorraine County is where it directly goes over Lorraine County. They all agreed to close last spring before school's out on that date. Independence, Mentor, schools around us, they're talking about traffic. I've been to a couple of meetings. I want this to be an educational moment. Part of the problem is the timing of the eclipse would be right when our elementary students would be on buses going home from school. Mr. Dutray found we've secured 1,700 glasses to be able to watch the event with. So my thought was I want to create some sort of event here so families can come. Our stadium's going to be a great place to watch. Mr. Burek ran on my parade today, said it's going to be cloudy and rainy all day and nobody's going to see anything. But just to, I just, as an educator, this is a teachable moment for us. This is a kind of once-in-a-lifetime event.
1806 was the last time it happened.
So
It's more than one
I'm trying to find a way that we can be in session, maybe high school all day, maybe elementary half day, but then still have an event that people can come back to here to do. So I'm really trying to work with this. And Mr. Young was at a meeting where they said one of the reasons they don't want schools to be open is that safety force, because of the number of people that will influx Northeast Ohio, that safety forces won't be available because they're going to be busy doing all these other things. So I'm still trying to work through that. We're going to talk about a communications forum. I know the 2 board members there, because I want to talk to them about with the teachers a little bit. Really, the elementary teachers every time I go over there, they ask me about it. I called and yelled at Ben at Independence for bailing so quick on me. So I would still like us to, this is, again, once in a lifetime, I'd really love to embrace this, and we're coming off of spring break, so we will have been on spring break the week before, and the following week, state testing starts, so that week of April 8th tends to be a pretty important week for us when it comes to our test preparation. So there's a lot of things that play into that. I just want that to be on the board's radar, that we are going to discuss that. And at the January meeting, I'll have the 24-25 calendar. I've got several iterations of that right now. We're going to sit down with the unions and go through that to the best of our ability to see what works best for us for next year. And I know that I keep keep trying to push the Career Center because we had so many days that didn't match up. I told Mr. Mangus, I said, if you guys did yours first and then gave it to us and we could see how we could work around it, because everybody's a little bit different. We have more student days than any other district that feeds into the Career Center. We have things in our collective bargaining agreement that kind of tie our hands with Christmas break and spring break. So, and then professional, as Mr. Young beats me over the head with on a daily basis, professional development that we have to get done that's mandated by the state. So, but if we have the Career Centers, if we would get their calendar sooner, we could maybe work more, like last year, we had so many days that didn't mesh with theirs, but they waited for us, and I said, well, we gotta go ahead and do it, what works for us. I would like to really have theirs in advance, so we could try to match it up, because the worst thing for us is that we have spring break one week, the Career Center has spring break a different week. We break on Friday for Christmas vacation, they break the previous Monday. So so we're asking kids to come to one or the other and not really get the break that some of their colleagues are getting, their classmates are getting. And sometimes kids just choose not to come to either at some point in time. I've had kids, when I taught at Career Center, said, well, I'm not going to either place during that. So, but it does put some, puts the kids in a tough spot to make some decisions about their time off too. They earn their time off as much as anybody else has. So, so we're kind of working on the whole calendar thing at this point in time. Friday, I will have a vacation day for the better part of the day. We will work over both collective bargaining agreements are up in the spring. I've sent you some stuff in the updates. The admin team was probably going to take a minimum of 2, maybe a third day. We might, the week between Christmas and New Year's, and slip over to the ESC and kind of lock ourselves in a room for a couple of days to hammer through the contracts and see, at least from our end, what kind of changes that we're looking for, what kind of things that modifications we might want to see to those contracts, and then we'll get John involved. Although I think John's kind of stepping away from contract negotiations. Maybe Bob McBride may take the lead with us on that, and that's fine, but it all works through the same firm on that, so that's what I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Evans. With that, I'm moving to item 14, and I'm going to make a motion to approve Mr. Muccio, Matt Muccio, treasurer, to attend the Ashland Leadership Academy seminars, January 5 and 6, February 2 and 3, March 1 and 2, which is an in-person workshop, the cost of $900 plus hotel and travel reimbursement. May I have a second, please?
Second.
That was a close one. Ms. Decker, was it Ms. Etter?
Second.
Ms. Decker, it's a second. So is there any discussion, or did you want to, anything to that, Mr. Muccio?
Sure, yeah. You know, John sends out the reminder to us, and last year, Mr. Young and myself attended, and, you know, I thought it was fantastic. You know, we sat around, we were able to, you know, meet some other school districts that, you know, typically we would not talk to. And it's through Ashland University, and it was created by John Britton, our, you know, school district legal counsel. So he's been doing it for, what, 20-some years, more than that? So I think I like to remind him that when he started this in 2001 is when I graduated high school. So, but no, it's, you know, fantastic. I think they had the teacher of the year, and I think, Matt, you're going to present this year too. So.
Yeah, the group of us, again, we're on the world tour. They asked us to come down and speak at the Alaska conference as well, so.
I voluntold Matt today that the superintendent's PLC at the Career Center wants him and Bob to present at the ESC in March as well, so.
Well, it's, yeah, not only great people to work with, but I think we took a little different spin on it. Everybody's talking about AI and what you can do in the classroom with it. We're trying to use it as responsible leadership and taking that leadership perspective on it and saying, how can we as adults use it to, you know, be more efficient, more effective, and to grow ourselves. I think that was just a little different spin on what people are used to or what they're hearing, and I think they like it that some guys are out there messing it up and taking the fall on some of those things before they do. So it's well received. We're very flattered for sure.
Again, congratulations, and the more forums, the better.
on
Can we
that.
have a vote, please? We move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye?
Mrs. Decker,
Aye.
Mrs. Zetter,
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki.
Aye.
Ms. Press.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're on to agenda item number 15, board committee reports, comments. Does anyone have anything for the group?
Actually, I do, and it's a little different, not so much a report as we're having our Career Center meeting tomorrow, and one of the things on our agenda, first of all, we're starting the meeting early, 5:30. It's normally a 6:30 meeting, we're starting at 5:30. That was actually my request because I have two things on that night. But people have said, why don't we start all our meetings at 5:30? And the reason for that is, frankly, let's face it, staff, right? I mean, you guys are here waiting for us to start the meeting. And tonight it was 7, most of our first meetings of the month tend to be 6, right? Should we consider moving our meetings forward, make them all 6 o'clock? That would certainly be better on the staff, because they're waiting for us to start. Well, do we want to consider that as a possibility? I mean, it's been 7 for years, but we switched to 6 for half of them a couple of years ago. Why don't we switch them all to 6 or 5:30 if you want? Now, I'm saying that knowing that not all of us have the same situations and not all of us can arrive at the same time. So I certainly recognize that. But if we can do half of them at 6, we should be able to do them all at 6. Does that make sense? And now would be the time to do it because we're going to it's going to be on next month's agenda.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I can only do earlier than 6, but 6 is fine.
You know me, I barely get here at 7. So I'm gonna say,
Why is everybody looking at you, Mrs. Zetter?
I guess, being very honest. I'm not good with change either, so.
It will be easier to remember, does that help?
We'll all be the same.
What time is it?
I like that part. For someone who showed up
What
at
are your
6
thoughts,
o'clock
Mrs.
tonight.
Decker?
I'm okay with it. I mean,
Okay, because you've got a tough schedule or tight
yeah,
schedule,
I'm-
work
I
schedule.
can make
I mean,
6.
does everybody have time to eat dinner before they come? Like, I never eat that early. So I'd be coming here without dinner, and I am telling you, I will
It'll make the
not be
meetings go
focused.
faster
Yeah.
if you're
I will not
hungry.
be focused. I will not be focused.
I'd rather get home earlier than worry about dinner.
Yeah, right, and frankly, I eat on the way out to the meeting too. Sometimes I get here close to the start of the meeting because I'm eating late. I'll just have to eat earlier. Or we can have Mr. Evans provide some snacks or something.
Absolutely.
Well, part of the impetus for or the reasoning for the 7 o'clock starts, I think, is to allow for ample time for the public to arrive
Right.
And that
and offer
there
their
is some-
comments, when and as they want to participate.
That there is some validity to that
I mean, when
concept.
we have the students of the month and stuff, I would think that 6 o'clock would be difficult for people.
I know, Mr.
For
Evans, you-
parents particularly.
But
Sporting events too, with the practices, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 o'clock allows the kids or students of the month who are in activities, time to
Yes.
finish practice, get clean, maybe get something to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an issue.
That's the one.
That is an issue, although we could do the business meeting at 6 and have the awards at 7. And just interrupt the business meeting as necessary, so we can start the awards on time.
I don't like that.
Yeah, the student scheduling conflicts or constraints isn't something I think that the Career Center is
Right.
concerned with.
Right.
And that may be the differentiating factor between their schedule and ours. But I think a lot of people like the idea that if we could hold the meetings earlier and meet all these needs, that would be a win-win, but I'm not sure what the,
let me talk to
okay.
my principals and see. In the past, it was twofold because of the student recognition part of it. And then we had some board members that worked pretty far away and that had difficulty even getting here sometimes by 7.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember
Right.
back.
Yeah,
that-
Joe.
Because of their work schedule. So, it certainly, it has to focus around the 5 of you, first and foremost. And then we can make some of the other stuff work too.
I think the students are used to being with games at time, 5:30, and practices. I don't know if
And,
it's bad.
and the beauty of Wednesdays is, generally speaking, the reason for Wednesdays is Wednesdays has not been a normal, like a varsity schedule. Like girls would go Tuesday, Friday, or Tuesday, there was Tuesday, Thursday, so Wednesday was not a regular, anymore with athletic scheduling, they just take whatever they can get. But there was a time when they tried to be very strict to say that, listen, your girls are gonna play on Tuesday nights, your boys are gonna play on Thursday nights, what have you on that, but that's kinda gone out the window. You know, and if I,
Basketball game tonight.
right, as I look at other boards, I really see, Wednesdays and Mondays. And I think Mondays, because generally speaking, they don't have events coming off of a weekend, but I would think Mondays, as far as preparation for a meeting, is a lot more difficult, because you're coming right out of a weekend, and sometimes there's some things that, yeah, you know, that means everything's ready for the meeting by the previous Thursday and ready to go, and then you're not making any kind of changes, so, I think sometimes you guys get a lot of information from me and from Matt to process on the weekends, knowing that we've got Monday and Tuesday if we have to make adjustments or changes or whatever it might be. I personally think Wednesdays works better for Matt. I don't know, I'm speaking for Matt.
I'd hate to change.
He's
Wednesdays
behind
too.
me, so just generally speaking, I think that's what you see from a lot of boards right now. It's just, and some do early. Somebody told me today that they had one at 5:30. I said, I can't imagine doing it 5:30 with board members at work.
Yeah, I can't either. I was surprised at the Career Center that nobody complained when we said 5:30, because people have to get there. And we're driving from a much larger area, right? You got
Yeah.
people coming in from Twinsburg, for example, to the Career Center. So there's been no resistance. Now, tomorrow night, there might be more resistance when we talk about more specifically doing it every month at 5:30.
And I think the key to that is that we do the schedule for the year, but if we need to make changes in advance, that I think it's just a matter of notification.
Sure.
So it's a matter of having a little foresight to say, listen, there's something going on that evening. Can we move it up or move it back or whatever we might need to do? And the board has been amenable to doing that in the past as well. I mean, that's, again, you guys all have lives and families as well. So we just do the best we can with it as we work our way through it, so.
So I just thought I'd put that on the table because I thought it was an interesting concept. And as you know, I do try to share things from one board to the other, ideas that seem to be good. I mean, several of my ideas, just like this open discussion stuff, or in that case, it's what's going on in your district. They never used to do that. So I said, you know, we ought to do something like that so board members can bring up their own items and put them on the table. So anyhow, we don't have to make the decision tonight. It can certainly be made in January, but it would be helpful to figure it out before we approve next year's agenda.
Maybe split the difference to start. Maybe you go to 6:30 with the meetings. I'm just throwing
Yeah.
stuff up against the wall. Maria, did they give you time to eat? I could tell. I could tell by the way the smirk was coming on your face that it's still not working,
She
Tom.
doesn't like that.
I just know how my life works, and
I ran into Mike today. If he'd have picked you up dinner when he was at Gourmand's working behind the counter today and had it ready for you,
To dinner while she's here.
yeah, he does usually go to dinner while I'm here.
I don't think I've ever done that.
No, I just know, I just know my schedule, and change is not good for me. And I would, me personally, I just like to leave things the way they are, but,
Ms. Etter, as a follow-up, does the kind of bifurcated 6-7 start times, does that work for you, or has that been a
well, that's what
problem?
we've been doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, does that work? That's,
Well, I've made it work.
okay,
I've made it work,
okay,
so.
thank you. Okay. So that's just something to think about, I guess, as we turn the calendar, or turn the page on another calendar year. Any other items for discussion or comment? If none, I do want to raise one point, and that is, Mr. Evans, I think that Mr. Suchaki and I are gonna be attending the organizational meeting, the agenda meeting?
yes,
And that's in January?
yes.
And that's obviously a run-up to the January 10th
Well,
organizational meeting.
quite honestly, we'll probably do that over break.
Yeah, and that's what I was asking earlier about what your time off
Yeah.
schedule is. So one of the things I wanted to mention to the other board members is, as you may know, one of the things we're going to do at the organizational meeting is we're going to elect new officers. And I just wanted to put it out there that one of the things we can do to add value to the district and among ourselves is to consider and talk amongst ourselves, obviously not more than two, and develop or solicit interest in serving as leaders or officials, representatives, officers of the district. So I would put that out there, and to the extent that you have time over the next couple of weeks, encourage you to talk amongst yourselves, and when we get together in January, it is an open and clear nomination process. So, I don't have anything else. Does anyone else have anything? If not, we will move on to agenda information. It should note the Board of Education members received their agenda several days prior to the actual meeting. Thus, they have had considerable opportunity to study it, ask questions, etc. As we talked about earlier, the organizational meeting is Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. It's a 6 p.m. start, and it's going to be here in the PDR of the Bonner Ray Media Center. And the purpose of the meeting, among other things, is to elect officers for the coming year. And Mr. Muccio, I assume that meeting's been published?
I will.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'll just read the upcoming regular meetings. Upcoming 2024 Board of Education meetings will take place in Bonner Ray Media Center, Professional Development Room, unless otherwise posted. Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 is the organizational meeting at 6 p.m. Wednesday, January 24th, 2024 is a regular meeting at 7 p.m. And Wednesday, February 14th is a work session at 6 p.m.
Why is there
The 20
why is there 3 weeks in between?
The 24th will be in the auditorium because we'll have 2 months' worth of students of the month.
Okay.
And it'd be a little bit tight in here, so we're going to do that one in the auditorium.
Okay.
Why is there 3 weeks between the meetings, January
Because
24th and 14th?
Because we spaced them, as I started to work the schedule forward, I worked it out to 2 a month and tried to keep it's not every 2 weeks. Because then we'd have some meetings where we'd have 3 meetings in a month, and it's not
Yeah.
necessary to
Yeah,
have, so that's one of
Okay.
those spaces where there's an extra week in between. Because I think, if you look at the overall schedule for next year, I think because I did the way I spaced them out, I think there's probably 1, maybe 2 less meetings.
and you
through the
didn't think
course
we'd
of the
have a
entire year.
conflict on Valentine's Day? Let's see how long.
Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. Sorry, Mrs. Etter.
That's fine, no worries.
So we're moving on to agenda item number 18, and there is a motion to adjourn to executive session. Mr. Evans, would we want to entertain that motion tonight?
It's at the board's pleasure. John is ready, willing, and able for us to give him a call so being as I reported earlier that he doesn't have a lot to report on other than the fact that the agreement in principle that we had discussed previously hasn't changed at all. They're just working the verbiage out, and he thought he could possibly have it done today, but it's in the back and forth process right now. So if you want to call John and talk to him, he said he's more than happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I don't want to be the decision maker on this unilaterally, so I'm curious to know what the others want to do.
Well,
or
that
not.
means that nothing can be done on this issue until January 10th?
No, that we could, thank you, Mrs. Etter, for bringing that up. Because I told John if he got that done earlier, that we could, that I think this board would be willing to have a special meeting to do that.
Thank you.
But I also told John that, generally speaking, that you as a board like a couple days to look at items, to process them a little bit, because generate some questions. So if he got that to me this week, that I could get that out, and then that would give the board a couple days to look at it, and then we can take a look at scheduling a special meeting that would probably, could last in a half hour, 45 minutes, whatever. But you guys could get any questions that you had out on the table. Because John said, he said, well, I can rush today and get it to you tonight so they can vote on it. I said, John, they won't vote on it tonight. I said, they want to, I said, my board wants to process it. They want to take a look at it. We've had a lot of discussion. They're going to want to take a look at the agreement prior to moving forward with it, so.
And I would think too, once we see it, we probably still would want to have him involved in case, as we discuss it, we
No,
have other
absolutely.
questions.
Again, that would be,
Yeah.
if we have again, if that's on a special meeting, John could, he may be in town, and we can zoom in, whatever we want to do with that. Because I know there will be questions.
Yeah, it's fine with me to get it as soon as reasonably possible,
Yeah.
just a few days, and schedule a special
I
meeting.
talked to him at noon today. When he was done with me, he was, actually, this afternoon was kind of Cuyahoga Heights things. I threw a couple things on his plate to take care of for
And
us, so.
when is winter break?
So, Mr. Evans, we have this matter on the agenda, we haven't modified the agenda. I think what I could do is make the motion, and if there was no second.
Fails for lack of a
It would
second.
just drop. And that would be one way to deal with this, unless we, as a group, want to talk to John tonight, Mr. Britton tonight. Okay, so I like the idea to, let's think about doing a special, and then we can get Mr. Britton on the phone. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn to executive session under ORC Section 121.22G for the specific, G, was it G6? No. Is it for G, for what?
I thought it was 3.
G, yeah, G3, thank you, Gary, thank you, Mr. Strachey. G3, and if there is no second, then the motion dies. Hearing no second, the motion dies. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn for the evening. May I have a second?
Sure.
Mr. Strachey seconds. All those in favor, voice vote aye.
Aye.
I hear 5 ayes, no nays. The motion passes. It's 8:22 PM and we are adjourned. Thank you.
I have stuff for